Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's another beautiful Saturday morning. Make sure everything's working properly. Looks looks like it is. Welcome, Dr. Feargood. Hello, Pleasant Doom. Thanks for joining us in chat. All of you who are listening from around the interwebs, welcome, welcome, welcome. It's been a little bit of a while, so why don't we start by telling me how your week is going and what your plans are for rolling dice or gaming otherwise this Saturday. A lot of really great things have happened in the gaming sphere on both the tabletop side and the Vidya gaming side as well. So you may know what I'm talking about there. We had a lot of really great releases. One in particular that stands out to me, it's The Last of Us 2. I won't say anything about it because I am very much anti-spoiler, anti-spoiler. You won't get it here, but thoroughly enthused. I'll just leave it at that. And if you're familiar with the franchise or interested in the franchise, then you should definitely check it out. And if you want to start with the first one, at least on the PlayStation Network or PSN store, it is $9.99 Canadian right now. So, yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. The Last of Us Remastered is $9.99. It looks beautiful. They've retweaked a lot of things about the game. It's a great playthrough. To give you a little bit of context, if you are looking at getting into The Last of Us 2, which just launched, of course, on Friday at midnight, and Steph and I did our first ever midnight launch playthrough of the game, and we both thoroughly enjoyed it. So, Dr. Fairgood, I have a game in 2 hours. That's a great way to start off a weekend. My weekly Saturday game. Next week, I have a morning and evening game besides other days. Gotcha. What other days are you playing D&D on this week? Dr. Feargood, PhD, MD, LLB. Pleasant Doom, got a short late night game tonight and an Eberron game tomorrow. Nice. Have you started the Eberron game, the Eberron campaign yet, or is this the first? Fair, don't you love those multi-game days? Oh my goodness. That's pretty awesome. I love to hear about Dungeons and Dragons being played. Previously, I would have said, it lets me live vicariously through you, but the reality is I've been playing a lot of D&D as well. So there is... so give me a quick second here. Riling the crew on Discord. Come on in here, grab your coffee. Let's talk about Dungeons and Dragons. That's a song I wrote about grabbing a coffee and playing Dungeons and Dragons today. There we go. Get in here, fam. Let's go. Rally the troops. If you are in chat and you haven't done so yet, please say hello. Just say hello or drop a period, an exclamation mark in chat, your favorite emote, whatever you like. Let us know you're listening. I thrive on the interaction, so don't be a stranger. Come and say hello with me. Hard to believe you wrote that just now. I know. Solid gold. I press gold for fun. Is it that hard to believe, though? Really? I mean, I'm quite talented. Sunday and Thursday you're playing Dr. Feargood. That's pretty awesome. And Mondays. Damn. Pleasant Doom Eberron has been going for a while. It's a hilarious group. That's good. I want to play something in that setting. I have a little bit of insider knowledge for you. Don't repeat. I have a plan to possibly bring my home game into the Eberron plane at some point. I can say no more. Why do I look animated? There's something going on with my... Hold on a second. I'm going to fix my camera here a little bit. Right? I look like I'm filtered or something. Plastic. Like streamer Ken. Not really quite Ken. More like Ken's reject cousin who never got invited to any of the parties that Ken got invited to. There we go. Like, my face has contour, you know? I have, like, features and stuff. There we go. That's better, I think. Is it? Video correction on the fly. That's a song about video correction on the fly. Mannequin Man. It's not really sham. Hello and welcome to Dungeons and Dragons. We are ready to talk about the news. Hard to believe you wrote that. What did you write? Well, in that sense, nothing. I wrote a song. I wrote these songs. I wrote these songs for you. We had an offline follow, an individual by the name of Brent147. I would like to say thank you, Brent147, for the offline follow. Welcome to the Checkmates. You're part of an amazing community filled with tabletop role-playing aficionados, gurus, enthusiasts, and video gamers. We think you'll like it here. Thank you very much for the follow, Brent147. Let it never be said that I don't give credit where credit was due. Even when follows are made offline, I am always watching. I'm always watching. Folks, we have we're going to jump into the news really quick. This might be a bit of a shorter stream. Like I said, I had a little bit of a hiatus, which is always painful for me. I dislike being away. I like being here for stream. I like streaming on a schedule. But we did have a little bit of a hiatus of late. And it's really nice to be back. So typically this is kind of my flagship show, Speaking Common, every Saturday morning. Mannequin Man, Doctor Who makes that give me the heebie-jeebies. Oh, is that a Doctor Who reference? Welcome, I see you. You've just joined chat. You have yet to say hello. Please do say hello. Give us a wave. And if you haven't done so yet, throw me a follow. That is the currency in which I play. If you want to support the stream, you're more than welcome to. But all I ask is that you follow and show up and join us for these wonderful content opportunities throughout the week. And that's it. That's why I do this. I'm here for you. I'm here for you to come and join me with a coffee or beverage of choice as we talk about the Dungeons and the Dragons, other tabletop role-playing game systems, video games, everything and all things in between. Grab a coffee with me on Saturday morning. Like I said, this is a flagship show. I usually run from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., but the circumstances in Ontario are such that we're allowed to have a small amount of people over now. So we have exactly 2 people, a couple friends of ours, fellow husband and wife, and they are we haven't seen them in 90 days. We haven't seen anyone. They haven't seen anyone. So today we are getting together for the first time in 3 months, and we're so excited. So they're going to be coming over this afternoon, which means we might pull. This might be a little bit of a shorter stream. So I'm going to jump right into the news here shortly. One of them actually is one of my home game players in Charisma Check, Meggy Sue, who plays Tamison. Oh my God, it's been a long time. Who plays Tamison on Charisma Check, and we're all so excited to get back to the table. While, like I was saying, I've been playing a lot more D&D now in these remote circumstances than I ever have, I think, in my life previously. I still have Charisma Check, which is on hold because it is a home game, intended to be a home game. We didn't want to bring that to an online format. That's my actual play podcast. So we wanted to make sure that that was still available in its original format. So we're just going to put that on pause. We'll pick it up when we're able to. But in the interim, I've begun a whole new campaign with 7 of our closest players who all wanted to try and play D&D. We launched the DM's Guild feature showcase, which is bi-weekly on stream, where we play through third-party content created for the Dungeon Masters Guild. These are adventure modules made by great third-party authors. And actually, Pleasant Doom in chat features in that cast as Glitterbomb. Tremendous table comprised entirely of community members from Twitter. So if you're interested in participating in some of those games or any of those games, please do follow me on Twitter. I think I got that command right. We'll find out shortly. So throw me a follow there. Join the Twitter community. That's where I pull all my my community members for games and things like that, and I put out all my updates there as well, as most of you know. So DM's Guild feature showcase launched. In addition to that, I also launched a Tuesday evening game with some close friends in lieu of Charisma Check, and we're playing through Tyranny of Dragons. That's an offline game, no cameras, no stress. I really enjoy it too. And then we're about to start. No, I think that's it for now, actually. So 3 games I'm running right now, and I love it. It's been kind of a crash course in Roll20, which I really like too. So I'm going to continue to do that. And over time, you'll see me probably lean more into community-based things, specifically offering games to people. Because I've always said I think the best thing that I can offer as someone who creates content is the opportunity to play. So yeah, that is the focus. And I hope you'll join me there on Twitter, of course, at Shambazzle Games, the internet over. Dr. Feargood, I'd love to join one. The only thing better than watching you guys adventure. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Feargood. Well, I'm sure you're pretty tuned in. I'm sure that you will see those announcements when they go out. There's going to be other opportunities too. So I've got some partnerships that I'm working on and involvement in other community outlets. Like I said, the focus there is community, really. So I want to make sure that we create those opportunities for people to join us as well. I'm going to do something here real quick. We're just going to take a snapshot and prepare to do a midstream tweet. It goes like this. As I make a goofy face and I capture it. And those of you who are in chat are going to get featured too, of course, because why not, say I. What's the weather like where you are today? It's beautiful and sunny here in Toronto, Canada. Yeah, no complaints here. No complaints here. Let's help me make a tweet, gang. Having a blast talking all things D&D and generally keeping it light on a Saturday morning. I'm having a blast anyway. Hopefully you guys are having fun too. It's early still. It only gets better from here. Heck yeah, getting warm. Nice, very good. Cloudy and likely to rain soon, Pleasant Doom. Has it been mostly sunny? Just a little bit of rain? A little bit of rain's good, of course, right? So I'm just writing this up and I'm saying, get in here, folks. Like, come join us. Because you don't know what you're missing until you find out what you have missed. I'm not typing all that. That's way too much for a tweet. Of course, if you would like to help me get the word out, I would greatly appreciate your support. Here is a little little tweeters, a little pre-baked tweeters. Somebody come tweeter. I'm on the internet. That doesn't rhyme. There's nothing in the coffee but coffee, I promise. I don't know where this is coming from, really. I have to look up my command because I just created these. I wrote them by hand. And I don't remember what they are. Actually, I was right. I should never doubt my instincts. Here is a little one-click pre-baked tweet that you can clickety-click on and help me get the word out to our friends in the Twitterverse if you are so inclined. No pressure, of course. No pressure. But if you would like to, I would greatly appreciate the support. All right, and with that, we are about to jump into the news. I'm doing a lot of singing today. Usually I do a little bit of singing. Today I'm doing a lot of singing. I don't know why. I can't explain it. Don't explain it. No apologies necessary because I won't offer one. Y'all know what you signed up for, right? Okay. Here we go. Let's schedule that for a little bit later on. Let's do 12:05. At 12:05 p.m., this tweet will go out to the masses, and they will come flocking. And we will be inundated with new friends. I say inundated. That's my Jack Black. Inundated. Come on in. Don't be shy. Make your way to the D&D stream of streams. What do you say, Kyle? Most of the week has been super hot, Pleasant Doom, so the rain is very welcome. So, yeah, there you go. It's nice to break it up once in a while. We had some thunderstorms here, too. I like a good thunderstorm, as long as it doesn't cut out my interwebs. Dr. Fairgood, I'm putting a monster card together for someone featuring the Rick Sanchez as the mad scientist from Rick and Morty. Yeah, tell me about it. Someone made stats up. Someone made stats up for Rick Sanchez? Nice. Was there nothing included in the D&D, the Rick and Morty, Big Rick Energy? Inundated. Little Jablinski for you this Saturday morning. You know, I need like a piano here. But I can't play one. I really appreciate our time together. Saturday mornings are very special to me, and it means a lot to me that you're here. These are all clips. I welcome you to go ahead and clip anything from the stream out and share, and I will handle the PR catastrophe that will inevitably follow. All right, you know what? We've it started off pretty goofy here today, so let's continue with that positive trend, and jump into some D&D chat, some D&D news. It's possible one of the books you don't have was sent the link for the stats. Nice. What are the stats? What is his class? Tell me, if you have such information on hand. And in the meantime, we're going to do a little thing that really gives the Speaking Common D&D news show its namesake. Let's jump into the Dungeons & Dragons news just like this. It has certainly been an exciting day in Dungeons & Dragons news. First of all, I'm going to move myself over. I'm just going to floaty float to the left here. There you go. See me shimmy, see me shake. Medium humanoid human, chaotic neutral, mad scientist trickster. Sounds about right. 20 armor class. 17 armored lab coat. Broke. Hit points 170. What's his challenge rating? Speed 30 feet. That's the only thing that looks normal there. Okay, yeah. 13 strength, 18 dex, 19 con, 20 intelligence. Fair enough. I need to see a 19 challenge rating. Okay, I was going to say, that's got to be late teens, early 20s for sure. Okay, that checks out. I will allow it, not that anyone was waiting for my say-so. Welcome. If you're just joining us, this is the Speaking Common Weekly Dungeons & Dragons news. Without further ado, let's do it for Saturday, June the 20th. A lot of great things happened in the world of Dungeons & Dragons this week. There was a lot of buzz, particularly on the video game side as well as the TTRPG side. We're going to get into that in just a minute, but I do have a couple of very quick community news. Well, I won't say quick. I want to get through these and share a couple of things that I've got in store, things that we are changing that I'm really excited about. Of course, we're constantly looking how to grow and improve on the stream. I've taken a lot of feedback from the community. And one of them is how I produce news, actually. So if you don't know yet, at shambazelgames.com, the website, I produce one news feature each day. So that's an article a day that covers some of the Dungeons and Dragons news, things that are happening in the D&D sphere to keep you up to date on what's going on. Now, one thing I hate about online journalism is bullshit clickbait titles. Give me some love in chat if you're with me on that, if you also hate said bullshit clickbait titles. And two, having to read through a whole bunch of fluff that's intended to just keep me in an article until I get to the information I want. So I simply said, you know what? My approach to news is going to be twofold. One, no clickbait, no bullshit titles that lead you into clicking on an article and then not being able to get the information that was promised in that headline. And two is just getting straight to the point. I don't have a lot of time. I've spent a lot of time. Love bad clickbait. You love that, Fair Good. Well, I'm going to deprive you of that, unfortunately. So what that means is my titles will be catchy, of course, but they'll be to the point where you'll know exactly what you're getting into in that article. And then we're getting right into the meat. So it's a bullet point approach to news. So you get just the details you need really quick, nice, quick, succinct. So you can get onto an article, read it. As a digital marketer, that's kind of counterintuitive if you're trying to keep people on your site. But what I want to do more than anything is provide the news in a hard-hitting, impactful way that doesn't require you to stay on a site longer than you want to be on said site. So, so this is a new approach to D&D news. It's a no-fluff, to the point, designed to be read, digested, and keep you informed into what's going on in the D&D news sphere every single day at shambazelgames.com. So please do check it out. You'll see the news roll right at the top. All those articles will give you the goods up front without having to make you sift through a bunch of crap to get to the information you want or to draw you with bullshit clickbait titles. And call me on that if you see it. Of course, follow me at shambazelgames on Twitter or anywhere in the interwebs for more updates on that. My streaming schedule has changed for the better. Certainly, we've added new shows, and I've gotten into a little bit more of a regimented production schedule. So it begins on Monday. And every Monday at 7 p.m., from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Steph and I jump online and we play co-op games in a series we call Two Play. So Two Play is designed to really be an opportunity for us to play. We banter. We have a lot of fun back and forth. Steph's hilarious. She freaks out all the time. We have a lot of kind of wit and I think a pretty good vibe. That's why I married her, I suppose. And we do that from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We usually do couch co-op games that we can play together, but as in the case of something like The Last of Us 2, we'll pass the controller back and forth. One of us will comment and keep an eye on chat while the other one's playing, and basically just generally crap on each other's play style. So definitely encourage you to join us Monday from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Two Play. Tuesday is an off day right now. But I might jump on for games for what we call bedtime stories, and usually that'll be around between 7 or 10 and 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Those are bonus streams. I'll just tweet those out when I'm jumping online just to play some games if you want to come chat, hang out. Wednesday from 7 to 10 p.m., every second Wednesday, we play the DM's Guild Feature Showcase. And as I mentioned, this is a show that's designed to highlight great third-party content creators and the great adventure and campaign modules that they create. So I pulled together fantastic people from our Dungeons & Dragons Twitter community. We get on Roll20 and we actually stream a really well-thought-out perpetual campaign that features these modules. And right now that cast is made up of at Pleasant Doom, a.k.a. Angela, who's in chat today, at Chickenly Nerd, at Just Drawn Radio, and at Dads and Dragons, that's D-A-D-S and the letter N, Dragons. And they're a really tremendous group. We just finished our 4th episode last Wednesday, and in 2 Wednesdays' time, you can come in and join us for episode 5. So keep an eye out for the VODs on this. It's a really great story, great team, and we have a lot of fun doing it. So I hope you join us for that as well. Thursday is also an additional kind of bonus-ish stream. And then, of course, Saturday in this time slot from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, every Saturday morning, we have Speak in Common, the D&D Weekly News. So be sure to check us out for that. For the full list of streaming schedule, check me out on twitch.tv/shambazelgames. You can also catch me on your streaming platform of choice. And YouTube, of course, for all the edited videos as I get through those. So I'll be sure to to make sure that that schedule is available, and I'll tweet that out too as soon as I get the visual design of it done. So I hope to see you in stream, because I'm starting to lean a lot more into the live streaming audiences. I really love that interactive nature of streaming. I love to get to know the community that we have here, because they are really wonderful, and I want to say hi to you, so please don't be shy. There was a that's the bulk of all the community news. So that said, let's get into what we covered in Dungeons and Dragons weekly news for this week, the week of Saturday, June 20th, 2020. It's June 20, 2020. That's right. So, big news in the Dungeons and Dragons sphere, perhaps the biggest so far, was the announcement of the new campaign story arc at D&D Live this week. It is, that's my drum roll, not just me choking on the mic. It is Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden. Now, it might not be terribly exciting, because as reported last Thursday, this was leaked entirely on Thursday. It was actually divulged by a video that went up and was immediately removed on D&D Beyond, where they actually showed the title, the cover, the subtitle, the tagline, everything, and it was 100% accurate, of course, as confirmed in the announcement on Thursday this week. But nonetheless, I'm still excited. It was kind of funny. I think I don't really believe in punishing companies too much for leaks, because let's be honest, like, the communities have become so savvy that they are actively digging for those leaks, and it's difficult for a company. I would rather the company put their attention and energy into making the content rather than combating leaks. Now, this, of course, clearly was some kind of mistake. I pity the poor individual who made that video public on Thursday last week, a full week before the scheduled announcement at D&D Live. They probably feel super shitty about it, but you know what? I think it pays more to laugh about it. In any case, it was up very briefly, just long enough for the internet, of course, to curate and snapshot it, which takes seconds these days, or milliseconds even. And then they ran it through an image enhancer. This is what people are doing now. They ran it through an image enhancer to basically parse out the visual, and we were able to construct in perfect detail the cover of the new arc. So, if you're not familiar, Icewind Dale, of course, that area of Faerun set in the Forgotten Realms, which is also the base for Drizzt Do'Urden, the legendary Drow Elf Ranger, and feature of Ari Salvatore's well-known series. Part of that campaign party with Catti Bree, Bruenor, Cameron, I believe Cameron, was it Cameron? I don't remember the name of the fighter guy. In any case, they are also the party that features in a little title called Dark Alliance. And you might remember that Dark Alliance has been announced to come out either this year or early next under the partnership of the newly acquired Took Studios. So this is a video game that is going to be coming out shortly, not to be confused with Baldur's Gate 3 from Larian Studios. But Dark Alliance is all set in Icewind Dale. And we've seen, reasonably so, that Wizards has habitually leaned more into cross-promoting through its D&D products, other products that are happening under the Wizards of the Coast umbrella. So it makes sense that, we've got Dark Alliance coming up soon. That features Drizzt Do'Urden and his pals in Dark Alliance. It's all set in the same region. And then conversely, the new story arc and new campaign will be released under Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden, coming in September, by the way. That features in the same area. So something to look forward to there. I'm excited about it. I will be planning a game to launch this series and working with some great partners on that too. So a little bit of a teaser there for you. Keep an eye out. More information to come on that, as well as casting announcements for the online live streaming campaign that we're going to be doing to feature Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden. Follow me at Shambazzle Games for details on that. Other news that came from D&D Live this week, of course, hotly awaited. This is a big one for me because, as you know, I straddle the line between TTRPGs and video games almost in equal strengths, although I spend way more time in the role-playing game or the TTRPG side of things. Baldur's Gate 3. So we've done a lot of work on Baldur's Gate 3. I did a gameplay demo reveal where I picked apart the video that was released at PAX East last year. This Thursday, before D&D Live started up, or Thursday past rather, Sven Vinke, the artistic director of Larian Studios, of course, the studio behind Divinity Original Sin and other such incredible Game of the Year-esque RPG titles, did a brand new gameplay reveal of Baldur's Gate 3, which showed us a lot of other new things too. It was really great. It's looking beautiful. In addition to that, it came on the heels of the announcement that early access will be available for Baldur's Gate 3 in August. So keep in mind that, and then of course they tagged that in parentheses, maybe. And we'll talk a little bit about what that actually means, too. So the first thing I did, of course, as I've promised, was come out with some hard-hitting bullet points about what we saw in that video. It started with Sven playing through one of the Origin characters, which is a Githyanki fighter named... oh, my God. Larazel? I forget her name now. I'll have to come back to that and fix it up. So, yeah, he started with the Githyanki Battlemaster. She's a Battlemaster. We know this because later we see her using Superiority Device. So it started there, and it begins with the character racing against the Illithid tadpole that's implanted in your brain, as well as a number of other adventurers who find themselves in the same boat. They have made some changes to the dialogue, so the dialogue is now first-person active, as opposed to like feeling like it was narrative. And this is something that I called out in the original video that I wasn't a big fan of. I found that when the narration was... it said like so-and-so did this type of thing, and then thought it made me feel like I was watching someone else's story rather than being in the story. So I'm glad they've made that change. All the narrative dialogue now is first person active, so it actually puts you narratively in the shoes of that character, which is a nice change. In addition to that, the narrator's voice in the new gameplay demo was distinctly female, and it left me wondering if that's a conscious change that they made, or if it's if you will have the option to change the narrator's voice. Who knows? But I like both, actually. I wasn't really precious one way or the other. So the scene continues to play out with that Githyanki hero and her origin story. Of course, in games, just like you can with Divinity Original Sin, you can either create your own hero, or you can play as one of the origin heroes, those who are more baked into the story. Sven did have his own character that is playing through the rest of the demo as well, so it's worth noting that continued to happen. So he was using a custom character. There was really great NPC interaction throughout the story that helps support the story immersion. They're all fully voiced, which is beautiful. Fully cinematic NPC dialogue. Just like in true D&D fashion, you sleep in your armor. There are NPC roll skill checks. So when you roll like a perception check, everybody rolls their own perception check, which gives you a little bit of another opportunity to, succeed on that if you fail your own. There's a lot of other things that were included in that video. So for the full rundown, do check out chambasilgames.com for that article. There's a lot of stuff there, and I'm going to continue to keep an eye on this because Baldur's Gate 3 is definitely something that I'm looking forward to. As I've said from the get-go, if you enjoy top-down isometric third-party role-playing game type video games like Divinity Original Sin 2 is probably the closest cousin to this, especially having been developed by the same company, then I think you'll really enjoy Baldur's Gate. The other thing that I'll call out is their adherence to 5e rules. They have very diligently brought 5e rule set right down to the action economy. You know, you've got your action, bonus action, movement, reactions, opportunity attacks, inspiration, which behaves just like inspiration. You know, you've only got one. It's a one and done. Everything that you would expect as a fan of or player in the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons rule set, you will see represented in Baldur's Gate 3 from everything that I've seen so far. So really excited about that, looking forward to it, and I hope you are too. In other D&D news this week, I did a quick rundown on some of the main 3 things to look out for D&D Live. So I caught pieces of D&D Live. Of course, I was mainly focused on the Baldur's Gate 3 gameplay reveal and the new early access information, the announcement around the new story arc in Icewind Dale for Rime of the Frost Maiden, and that was really the bulk of it for me. I mean, that's what I wanted out of D&D this week. I wasn't so hot on watching the gameplay, not for any reason other than I was working at the same time, too, so I wasn't really in a position to sit and watch people play, while I do enjoy that from time to time. I'll be honest with you, I'm less kind of implied by, the celebrity tables and things like that. Although the Game of Thrones reunion was something that piqued my interest a little bit. So when we looked at the three main things that I suggested people look out for in D&D Live, if you're like me, somewhat time-strapped and maybe just looking for the highlights, then those three items were, of course, the new storyline announcement, the main stage game. So if you want a quick rundown, if you didn't get to check it out, there was basically the headline game, which featured a bunch of comedians playing D&D, including Thomas Middleditch, who's an actor and comedian, Brian Posehn, who's who's an actor and comedian, Kevin Sussman from The Big Bang Theory and Almost Famous. And I didn't watch it, honestly. I'll be totally transparent. Didn't really. That one didn't pee for me. But Jeremy Crawford had an interesting game with a bunch of WWE celebrities. And it's interesting. There are weird crossovers and fandoms coming into D&D, I guess, because it really does have something for everything. But WWE is something that I've seen feature regularly. That said, I actually do enjoy watching Jeremy Crawford DM games, especially he is kind of like the godfather of the rule set. So it's interesting to see how Jeremy Crawford applies the rules that he specifically oversees in an actual table play. So that's always exciting to watch. Deborah Ann Woll, I have something interesting that kind of changed for me in this. I'll be the first to say it. Please reserve your hate. I was never really a fan of Deborah Ann Woll's DMing style. I found her a little bit too like esoteric and almost like presentational. When I first began to watch her, I think it was in I think it was the Stream of Many Eyes was the first time I had seen her DM. And I wasn't a big fan, but watching her this time, I feel like, just like DMs, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get, the better you get at it. I actually thoroughly enjoyed her. I liked her style. I like her she's very soft-spoken, but impactful. And I was like, hey, you know what? I think either my perspective has changed enough where I can appreciate this on a different level, or she's just improved and gotten a lot more comfortable. So I actually watched that game, and I wasn't planning on it. Of course, it was Deborah Ann Woll with Amy Acker, Jay Ellis. This was Matthew Lillard, of course, and Sam Richardson. It was the first time I had seen Matthew Lillard play in a tabletop game, and I just thought he only had one volume, and it's like between 10 and 11. But I digress. It's a personal thing. But yeah, that looked like a perfectly fun game. I didn't want to pay. But I enjoyed Deborah Ann Woll. Doctor figured you would have watched her, but didn't want to pay for another service. What do you mean? You had to pay for? Oh, are you talking about for the relics and was it relics and rarities or? Yeah, I will not. My personal choice is that I would not pay to watch somebody play D&D. Yeah, no, I never watched the relics and rarities thing. I agree with you there. I think was that a Geek and Sundry thing? That sounds like a Geek and Sundry thing to do. I'll just say it that way. Yeah, any way you can wring coin out of your audience is kind of part of the GNS playbook. We've got, but I really enjoyed her. All that aside, and yeah, I don't really believe in paying for or making people pay to watch people play D&D, especially when playing the game and all the materials are not really costed, to a certain level. So there's a little bit of a conflict there for me. Chris Perkins, I always really enjoy. I enjoy Perkins as a DM. I enjoy his games. I thought he had a couple of good tables going, and then of course Kate Welch, leading the Game of Thrones cast reunion through gameplay. I wasn't able to catch it because it happened in time when I was sadly in meetings. I would rather have been watching D&D in that scenario, but I will go back and look at the VODs. Of course, they had Christian Nairn, who plays Hodor, Daniel Portman, who plays Podrick Payne. They had Ivan Ryan, who you may remember as Ramsay Bolton, the tormentor of Theon Greyjoy, Natalia Tena, who plays Osha, and Gemma Whalen, who plays Yara Greyjoy, Theon's badass sister. So a really cool table that they had built around the Game of Thrones reunion, and that seems like it might have been a good game to play. So I will check in on that, because it's not just about like watching celebrities play D&D. It's interesting to watch a group of people who are part of something so epic and fantasy oriented like Game of Thrones, whether you love it or hate it, then dive into a fantasy epic role-playing game where they can kind of play the director a little bit of themselves. So that's I think that would be neat to see. And then of course the third and final of the three things I would have looked out for D&D Live is the new reality RP show. I didn't get to check that out for the same reasons. I was just tied up with work. But this is a bit of a new initiative that they're taking on. It looks like they were trying to bring to a remote format the same immersive environment they were creating with the Stream of Many Eyes when they announced Waterdeep Dragon Heist and Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage, where they had created a little kind of scene of Waterdeep complete with like cosplay and NPCs where people could interact with them. But then they also had a game happening in the center of all that. So it's a really cool kind of innovative approach. I don't really know how to play it out, so I'll look forward to checking in on that and seeing how they play. But that is the new reality RP show that they had begun to build into that. It was hosted by Prosperin, the prison ward of Revels, and of course there are lots of teases in this about Frostmaiden's Rime. They even specifically call out Frostmaiden's Rime, and they talk about the 10 Towns, which features in Icewind Dale. So at that point, before they even came to the launch on Thursday, I think it was pretty much a given and readily accepted that the new storyline was going to be Icewind Dale at that point. So like I said, I'm not too worried about the leaks. I hope they're not either. I mean, last time, what was it? It was when Wildmount was announced and Amazon put up the placeholder listing like a week before they had officially announced it. There are so many ways now for leaks to happen and things to go up inadvertently. As somebody who publishes a lot of content regularly, I can fully see how when you're going a mile a minute and you're scheduling things out that they go up unintended, just like we saw with D&D Beyond. So while I joke, I don't think it's really wise or necessary or even valuable to punish people for that. What they do behind closed doors of the company, who knows? But it is what it is. I don't think it does anything to diminish the excitement around it, right? Or lose excitement that wouldn't have been there otherwise. So I'm excited about Icewind Dale, very much looking forward to it. And those, of course, were three of the main things to look out for Dungeons & Dragons D&D Live 2020 this year. Of course, the annual event where Wizards of the Coast announces their new upcoming story arc. And this one, of course, coming in September. We had a couple of other news items from last week that I didn't get to mention, so I'm just going to tag them on to the end of this one. Magic the Gathering announced a partnership with Netflix that's going to bring an anime to the streaming service. This is not necessarily news, but when I wrote it, it was to me. I hadn't heard about this actually, so but it sounds really interesting. So Magic the Gathering and Netflix are working together to produce an anime. It's being heralded as Netflix's Game of Thrones, so I'm excited about that. It includes the Avengers Endgame duo brothers Joe and Anthony Russo as executive producers. So it's helmed by some people who definitely know what they're doing, produced in collaboration with Wizards of the Coast, of course, and it's going to feature an all-new storyline which expands on Planeswalkers in Magic the Gathering. Of course, Planeswalkers, as a player of Magic the Gathering, as best I remember, you are a Planeswalker, so you're this arcane entity that has the ability to travel through planes. So it's going to feature on that mechanic in MTG, but an all-new, completely organic and original storyline. So that's exciting. The animation's being done by Bardell Entertainment, who also did The Dragon Prince, which I freaking love, and production by Octopi Studios, who did Valkyrie and Dark Souls animated series as well. So some really good chops around this. I think it sounds exciting. It has a purported release for 2021. We don't know much about the actual release of it either, but it's intended to branch out into multiple other series as well. So I think there's a lot of interest in that. That might be the kind of thing that rekindles my former interest in Magic the Gathering. Of course, when I was a kid in the late 80s and early 90s, I spent a lot of hours playing Magic the Gathering. I have a buddy at work who's trying to get me into it, but it's a little overwhelming with everything else that I have right now. But that might be the right gateway for me because I'm all about watching those animes. And the Dragon Prince, I freaking love. I've turned a lot of people onto that series, and I stand by it. So if you haven't seen The Dragon Prince on Netflix yet, check it out. It's really incredible. They've done a really great job of bringing diversity, inclusion, and just a tremendously incredible storyline into beautiful animation and a long-standing, perpetual, arcing storyline, which it's just tropey in the right way. So check it out. I strongly encourage you to do so. Finally, there was a lot of talk about 6e Dungeons & Dragons. I don't know where this came from, but a lot of people are going on about, like, 6e is pending now, or, like, what's coming for D&D 6e. First of all, like I said, all the goods up front. I'm not going to take you down a long rabbit hole until you get to this point, but there is nothing to validate or even remotely suggest that D&D 6e is anywhere on the horizon. So I started this by thinking like, okay, are we just not hitting stride with 5th edition? And we are. Obviously, 5th edition is statistically, as I've reported many, many times, readily available, the most successful edition of Dungeons & Dragons to ever be produced. And by that, I mean between streams, uptake, adoption, celebrity cameos, actual hard sales, production for Hasbro as a parent company, everything is like green, green, green. It's redlining for high-end performance. There is nothing to show any kind of slowdown for 5e. It would be absolutely insane for them to try and position 6e right now. 5th edition is still laying golden eggs all over the place. It doesn't matter how you feel about it. Those are the stats. So there is no real 6th edition on the horizon. But just for kicks, I decided to pull together the 6e hype and just see if there was anything that was like validated to support and anything that was validated to debunk the myth whether or not 6e is on the horizon. So what I found, let's start with things that I found to debunk the myth that D&D 6e is coming. So first of all, there's literally zero info that I could find from any official source on 6e. Nothing. Like I said, D&D 5e is still experiencing record, groundbreaking, and unprecedented growth and investment for both video games, board games, accessory products, and of course the tabletop role-playing products itself. So there's no slowdown there. And from the Hasbro investors presentation in 2020 this year, they said they have like dozens and dozens of cross promotions and video games still to be announced that they haven't even touched yet for the remainder of 2020. You know, COVID-19 delays have been happening as well, but even those COVID-19 related delays and production setbacks suggest that there's no reason to think that they would be working on a new edition of 6e at this point when they're still catching up with their launch schedule for 5e based on the current pandemic. The 5e Player's Handbook is still in the top 100 best sellers of all time, according to Amazon. So they've got a really great contender there that's continuing to perform. There was a lot of talk about the edition release timing. So people say, well, it was about this time when so-and-so edition was released. There's no real logic in that other than placing dates at times when editions were released. So there were 13 years between 2e and 3e D&D, and there were 3 years between 3rd edition and 3.5 edition D&D, and 4th edition. Sorry, there were 3 years between 3.5 and 4. So suffice it to say, there is no release schedule. These things don't come out on a cadence, right? Like iPhone comes out like twice a year now, right? It doesn't work that way. So there's no release schedule. That's a total myth. It's a popular myth that you might hear around a lot, but there's nothing to validate that whatsoever. There's an individual who I won't name that a lot of people are calling for the termination of, who's no longer working on D&D, though still a Wizards employee, that this individual once said that 6e would be made to work with the core rules of 5e, and then said we're nowhere near 6th edition, and that was on Twitter in 2018. So that's the only thing where 6e was even remotely mentioned. And of course, given the source, are we really going to put a lot of faith in that individual's statements? Probably not. So let's take a look at what would support the idea that 6e is coming. I have one note. It's literally nothing. The fact that there is literally nothing to support the idea that 6e D&D is coming. Go ahead and challenge me on that. I welcome it. If you have something that contravenes that, by all means, go ahead and share it with me. At Shambazzle Games, get at me. I'll probably regret that later, but I welcome it. Let me know if there's anything you have found that shows that 6e D&D might be imminent and on the future. And then finally, to wrap up the news, I do want to say that as we go through with Speaking Common, we get back to my regular schedule. After the live D&D news every Saturday morning, of course, we're going to go into questions about D&D. We'll do some content that I produce and then share it over my channels. We'll do DN tips, player tips, and then, of course, two new segments that I've brought together, which are D&D Rules Solution and Sage Advice Unfurled, where we talk about the fine corners of content that's in the Player's Handbook, and we look deeply into the rules and some of the most hotly contested rules of D&D 5e. But most importantly, once that's done, I'm going to carve out the second half of every show moving forward for actual game prep. That's something I stopped doing. I really want to bring back. So that's digital map making, that's game prep, notes, and planning, and how we actually build worlds. So getting more into the function of actually playing D&D in the second half of the show. And I'm really looking forward to bringing that back to Speaking Common every week right here on Shambazla Games. I hope you'll join me, but that is a wrap on your news for the week of Saturday, June 20th, in all things Dungeons and Dragons Weekly on Speaking Common. I hope we'll see you again next week on Saturday for a live presentation of this on your streaming platform of choice. Thanks for joining. And that's the news. Thanks, Fear. We're still here. Of course, that's just my sign off for the news. So don't go anywhere. We're still here. We still got a lot of time to kill. But what I do then is I record that news section at the beginning of today's show. And then I parse that out to the video blog. And then that becomes the podcast as well. So now that that's done, we can get back into chat. Thanks for hanging out. What did you guys think of the news? Anything there stand out to you? Do you have any other questions or anything you want to talk about what we covered? Pleasant Doom, totally excited for Baldur's Gate. Me too, man. You guys are sweet. Maybe I'll preface that next time before I go into the news. The stream continues, but that's the end of the news. Or maybe I just won't sign off like that. Was that confusing? It seems like that was pretty confusing. I'm still learning as we go along. The new game and the new D&D book sounds awesome. Yeah. How familiar are you with Icewind Dale? I'm really excited for Icewind Dale, actually. I love the setting. I love the campaign. I love all of it. All of it. Give it to me all. Give me all of it. Give me all of the things. Read almost all the books with Drizzt, yeah. I'm reading through the companions right now, which is almost like a retrospective of their adventures. Actually, I shouldn't say I'm reading through the companions. I should say I started reading the companions a while ago, and then I stopped. So I need to get back to it. Partly distracted over here. That's what caused my confusion. Also, me saying thanks for joining and goodbye may have contributed to that confusion too. Here's a question for you, gang. Do you use? That's not proper grammar. Do you use Unearthed Arcana or other playtest material in your game? Unearthed Arcana, of course, is the regular playtest issue from Wizards of the Coast, and they frequently put these out to the community to try them in their games. Now, I typically don't allow playtest material in my game because it's untested. It tends to be somewhat broken, and it usually goes through many, many iterations before it's made official material, which is the only D&D material I allow in my home games, just by choice. Now, that doesn't mean that in the future I wouldn't like to put together a little test group to play these types of mechanical changes, but usually Unearthed Arcana is interesting, although untested in the RPG format, so I personally don't allow it. But do you? I would like to know. Another question for you this week. What is the most clutch use of inspiration, whether Bardic DM or otherwise, that you've ever seen? For me, it usually comes down to death saves. For DM inspiration, I've seen DM inspiration on death saves save characters on more than one occasion. And Bardic inspiration, I usually see going towards saving throws for some reason. Less frequently used for attacks and other things like that, or skill checks. But saving throws for Bardic inspiration and mainly death saves for DM inspiration. Figure that. How about you? When do you like to use your inspiration? Dr. Feargood, I have, depending on what it is, make the decision when I'm asked. Yeah, for Unearthed Arcana. Pleasant Unearthed Arcana for one of your players and some third-party class stuff. For what did you use for your player? What was it that you brought in? What about inspiration for heroes? Have you ever used inspiration for any of your characters? Or rather, what famous hero or character have you based a PC or NPC after? I do have one. I have one that I based. I have an NPC that I based off of Terry Crews, who I love. And I have a PC that I based off of a World of Warcraft character that I had. It was a World of Warcraft character that I created, and then I created a D&D character who was loosely based off that World of Warcraft character. I've never really based a character or NPC off a well-known hero, but it's definitely something you consider. It's a good source for inspiration as well. Angela, when I play my bard, my fellow players use it for attacks. Oh, for your they use your inspiration for attacks. Dr. Figured is the new Pact of the Warlock. Gotcha. So how did you find it work? Was it pretty fluid? Were there parts of it that were broken that you adjusted in the moments? Pleasant Zoom, my player is using Unearthed Arcana for Beastmaster Ranger. Yeah, actually, let me retract that. The only Unearthed Arcana that I'll bring into game is the Ranger treatment, the Unearthed Arcana Ranger treatment, because it's a lot better. And I found when the PHB version of Ranger was a little lackluster for me, particularly around the favored terrain and favored enemy side of things. So I brought in the Unearthed Arcana Ranger treatment, which I don't know if it's been made official, and I don't know why it hasn't been made official, because the UA Ranger is much more rich and robust without being broken at all. So I don't know why they didn't just flip that over and make it official, honestly. But I agree with you there. I think the Ranger treatment for UA is definitely worth hanging on to. A question for my fellow creators. What platform do you use to give away? Sorry, let me start that one again. A question for my fellow creators. What platform do you use for giveaways and perks? If you're running giveaways for your communities, what platforms do you use to create those giveaways? What do you think works well? And how do you produce community perks? Or what community perks have you brought in that you feel are big hits with your communities? Let's share what we're doing to create these communities and build content for those who are looking to do the same. For me, I've found previously on Twitch, I've done giveaways, and the way that I've done them is by using Streamlab as the platform. And this was before the new iteration of Streamlabs, which would just let me capture people who entered, and then I simply rolled random dice and picked that based on the list. It was a little clunky, but it was in a time where there weren't really good platforms designated specifically for giveaways, so I'd be open to more suggestions on how I can bring that into my communities too, because I would like to give back a little bit more frequently, and I'm considering that regularly. I don't know, what do you guys think? Do you think giveaways are a good practice? Are they something you'd look forward to, or do they just attract that pocket of people who just go online and enter contests and don't really participate beyond that? I'm always trying to figure out the right way to give back to my community, but without being manipulated by bots and things like that, and people who just show up to win stuff. Because for me, community giveaways, the spirit of community giveaways is really to show appreciation to those people who show up regularly, who support and participate. You know what I mean? Your little podcast doesn't have enough of a following yet for giveaways? Yeah, and it takes time. I'm just starting to consider it now, and I have a pretty good following, I think. Right? Enough so that I'm willing to put my own money into getting something to give out, right? And I don't have sponsorships or anything like that yet. So this would be me basically buying a gift to give to someone in my community. And I don't want that person, honestly, call me on it, but I would rather that person not be someone who just showed up, followed, entered a contest, and then left after the draw. You know what I mean? That's not the spirit of what I want to do. And I don't think that's, villainous. So that's why historically, I've not really been a huge fan of giveaways. I've done a couple, but I find that they always just seem to attract the folks who literally have a Twitter account or Facebook account just to enter contests. And that I think threatens to take away from the people who show up every day and who participate and are actually good contributing members of the community. And worse, I've seen people win these things and then either sell them or give them away on their own channels. So I'm looking for a way to concentrate it down to making sure that it is something that we can make sure that we protect the integrity and the intention of those giveaways. And I'm thinking Patreon might actually be a platform for that too. I don't know. What do you folks think? I'd love to get your feedback on that because you are the community. So it's something that I'd like to be driven by and endorsed by you. Last question for this week. What historical Earth setting would you love to play a themed TTRPG game in? For me, I always go back to like old medieval Rome. I think like when I think like Assassin's Creed, that type of thing, I'd love to play a TTRPG set in like old medieval Rome. The other thing that I always think about is like industrial era England. Those are two areas or two settings that I'd love to play like a TTRPG set in. What about you? Pleasant Doom, there's a channel somewhere in Discord where they have instructions to program moderator bots. Yeah, and you know what, Pleasant? I'm starting to slowly, as you saw me, I kind of put a stake down on Discord where I'm starting to slowly kind of build into things like that too. And the next thing I have to do is get some bots, make it a little bit more engaging and interesting. One of your channels, they have chat members level up with the bots, which has been used to weed out bots. Okay. Yeah, I got to get some moderation going too. You're right. I have light moderation on Twitch, of course, but as we grow, I think it's important to make sure that we protect the community that way for sure. So Discord's going to be a part of that too. I am looking at building a Patreon platform and Ko-Fi just for support. Like I am at the point where I have to kind of try to validate the time. Large Donger Haver, welcome. Picks or didn't happen. I don't mean that. Hello, welcome to the stream. Glad to have you, Large Donger Haver. That's quite a statement. I'll go ahead and take your word for it. No proof necessary. How are you doing today? Welcome. How's your Saturday going? Is there gameplay on your horizon? Tell us. Don't be shy. We're all about the back and forth, the interaction. One of the other content pieces I do during this stream are fill in the blank. So blank, fill in the blank for this. Blank, what is one feat that you always take in D&D? What's one feat that you can't do without? For me, I really like, of course, I'm a DM, so I guess I simultaneously have all the feats. But I really like Alert, and Magic Initiate is always interesting. And Sharpshooter, which is kind of a BS feat. That's very polarizing, so. Large, I'm doing good, and you? I am well, thank you, my friend. I'm here doing this with you, so I am just perfect. This is really like, I love this on Saturday. It kind of gets me going. It kicks off my weekend right. Hanging out with you folks, hanging out with the community, talking Dungeons and the Dragons, and I would never change a thing. Indeed. Of course, we just did the news, which we do between 11:30 and 12 every Saturday stream, where we cover all the weekly news from D&D. So keep an eye out for the VOD on that. If you haven't done so already, please do throw me a follow here on Twitch. Show me your support. That's what I love, because I'm here for the people. I'll take the people all day, every day. That's why I do it. So be part of our wonderful community, and we would be lucky to have you, my friend. The most used spell, or my most used spell or ability is what? For me, if I'm not being cheap and saying you consider it, give it a thought. You let me know if I've earned it by the end of the day. For me, I would say my most used spell or ability, aside from being cheap and saying something mechanical like initiative, is probably Magic Missile. As a DM running spellcasting NPCs, I love Magic Missile. What I love about it most is that if the dice aren't working for me and I can't hit things, I say, like, you know what, screw it, Magic Missile, take the damage, and I'll move on. Magic Missile is an automatic hit, so I like it if the dice are being particularly dickish to me on a given day. What about you? Here's a fun one for those of you with DMs out there. My DM gave me a gift. I shook it and heard what? My DM, I'm a forever DM, so I suppose my role is to giveth of the gifts. The gift that I receive is a presence of my players at my table. So, and I would never shake any of them. Pleasant Doom, my most used ability is Dissonant Whispers. Classic Bard action. Another big one that I always see, of course, is Eldritch Blast. Why wouldn't you? It's tremendously powerful. Brilliant little cantrip that can be heavily modified by warlocks. So why wouldn't you use it all the time? And some days I use a lot of Halfling Luck. Yes, Halfling Luck is heralded as one of the most OP racial traits. Of course, Halfling Luck stipulates that as a Halfling, anytime you roll a 1 on a skill check, you can re-roll it, but you have to take the second roll. So it's basically like critical fail insurance for Halflings, and there's no limit to it. It's just once per roll. So it's not like a long rest thing. Anytime you're rolling a 1, you can always re-roll it, which is definitely very handy. I've seen many a Halfling benefit from that frequently at the table. It's DM Kryptonite. Large Dogger Haver, what do you play? What's your game of choice? Are you playing the D&D? Are you playing the Vidya games? A little bit of both. And those of you who've not spoken up in chat, please speak up. Ask me any questions that you have. Ask me anything, D&D related, video game related, or otherwise. We can talk about your personal life to a certain extent. There's some things I just don't want to know. We can talk about your personal life as it relates to Dungeons and Dragons. What's another one I'll throw out to you? Okay, let's talk about the other side of that. If I could give my PC, if I could give my character a present, it would be what? And as a forever DM, I would say I had one character that I always played. His name was Kralar Brightscale. He was a Wormslayer Paladin. And if I could give him one gift, it was the unicorn that I always sought and never got, my +5 Holy Avenger, blazing with blue flame. I would say, here, Kralar, finally, you can tie off your career and retire happily, knowing that you have finally received your +5 Holy Avenger. That's the gift I would have given Kralar as a playa. Pleasant to my most used ability is just, I just read that because, short-term memory is getting better with age, obviously. I like when the roll goes from a 1 to a nat 20. Yeah, when you roll 1, you get your luck, and then you roll a nat 20. Curses. Curses. No, that's always great, though. That's always great. You know, I always say, it has changed from... What was the the analogy I was using the other day is as a DM, I like to think get excited for natural 20s too. We get excited when players roll natural 20s, but when we roll natural 20, there's an effect of like, oh shit. Right? Like when I see my players roll a nat 20, I'm like, yeah. But when I as a DM roll a nat 20 on an attack against a player, I'm like, ooh. Isn't that strange? And of course, crit fails are just as exciting as crit successes. Nat 1s and nat 20s have their own excitement in different ways, but they are equally exciting. So don't stress shitty rolls on your skill checks. Every time you fail a roll, it's an opportunity to play something interesting that you weren't gunning for, because we all want high rolls, right? So how often does it happen when you're at the table and somebody rolls a die and they're like, oh, crap, it's crap, it's a 4. But a failed roll is also a narrative opportunity, isn't it? Right? Oh no, I like rolling nat 20 when I DM too. Yeah, you're one of those DMs, huh? I like to kick the shit out of my players. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I do. It's still exciting, but if it's really dire, I always side with my players, right? I go by that old mantra of plan plan against your players but root for them or something like that. Wow, I screwed that up for sure. It's like when I'm planning, I'm building for the enemies, but when I'm playing, I'm rooting for my players. Your dice hate you when you DM though, so it doesn't happen often. Only once in a while. Welcome if you're just joining us to the stream. This is my flagship Saturday show, Speaking Common, every Saturday morning from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Grab a coffee, come join us, talk D&D. We just did the D&D weekly news, and then we go into just various segments, conversation starters, chatting about the game that we all know and love. And in a minute, we're going to duck into another segment called D&D Rule Solution, where we go through a little bit of detail in the PHB that's often overlooked or missed by players. So, you know what, let's do one more quick fill in the blank, a little kind of multiple choice elective. The one streaming TTRPG show or podcast that I can't miss each week is what? I'm going to be a trope right now and say that Steph and I have actually been catching up on Critical Role Season 2 a lot, and we're kind of hooked again. So I really enjoy Critical Role. I like watching them play. Like I always say, when you engage in a stream, podcast, or show, it's for the people more than the game. And I would challenge. There's an easy way to check this. I think the same dozens of thousands of people who watch Critical Role every week will watch them either play Dungeons and Dragons or watch them play Dungeon Crawler Classics or watch them play Animal Crossing, right? So it's really about the people at the end of the day, and I do find the cast and the people involved in Critical Role really engaging, honest, genuine, and I enjoy it. And this story is really great too, so we're currently binging that one. Pleasant Doom Critical Hit is audio only. Yeah, I love my podcasts too. I haven't been listening to as many podcasts because I'm not doing my commute to work. I'm working from home now. So I have to like build that in and make time because I used to always just listen to it in the car. I was on my commute was like 2 hours each way. So I had a 4-hour daily commute and I listened to a lot of podcasts on that commute. But lately I haven't had that. Not that I'm missing the 4-hour commute, but I am missing the downtime to listen to my podcasts and things like that. So you listen at work usually? See, I admire that. And I am not good at I can't listen and work at the same time because my mind goes into work and I don't retain things. So I listen to music, but I can't listen to a podcast because by the time I finish the work, I'm like, what just happened in that podcast? So I admire that. That's a gift. Critical Hit's been running for 10 plus years. That sounds awesome. I'll have to add it to my my library though. I have a lot of actual plays that I'm working on. Oh, it's a 4E based podcast, huh? Nice. Very nice. Very nice. Okay, so let's jump into the next segment on the show today, which is D&D Rule Solution, and it looks like this. So just a quick recap for you. In D&D Rule Solution, what we do is we go through the uncleared corners of the player's handbook and kind of pull out some of the information that is often or otherwise overlooked or missed. Teague Ranger, thank you very much for the follower on the Mixer crew. Thanks. Welcome to the Checkmates. You're part of an amazing community of tabletop role-playing game aficionado gurus and enthusiasts, as well as game players, lovers of all things gaming and nerd culture. So thank you for joining us on the show today. Thank you for the follow. Really appreciate your support and for giving me your time this fine Saturday morning. Continuing with D&D Rule Solution, we always do a who's who of Dungeons & Dragons, and today we're talking about none other than Chris Perkins himself. Of course, Chris Perkins was born in Canada. As a Canadian, I have to mention that. We love to, herald that. We love to beat that drum. But the reality is, I mean, he moved to the U.S. as a young individual and is very much an American citizen. So Canadians, I know we like to try to put our stamp on everything we can if they ever were born in or walked through Canada. But while Chris Perkins is a native of Canada, he's a U.S. citizen, has been living there for a very long time. He is a senior producer now for Dungeons and Dragons, and he leads the design, development, and editing for all D&D products. He began actually as an editor for Dungeon Magazine, which was the previous iteration way back in 1997. That's a reality check for me too. It was way back. And of course, you will know him now as not only the dungeon master for the live streams, but his name is now pretty much on anything that goes into print or digital format that bears the D&D logo. And that is Chris Perkins. Hello. Welcome. Yeah, if you're just joining us, don't be shy. Say hello in chat. I don't bite. We love the back and the forth. If you have any questions on anything that we're covering, then by all means, please go ahead and speak up too. It's all about the interactivity. Dungeons and Dragons is about imagination and storytelling, and this comes directly from the Player's Handbook as a quote. It shares elements with childhood games of make-believe. Like those games, D&D is driven by imagination. It's about the towering castle beneath a stormy night sky, imagining how a fantasy adventurer might react to the challenges and scenes that are presented therein. So effectively, that really boils down to the actions, reactions, and of course the consequences that come with it. D&D simply gives structure to those stories. So it's a set of rules that are structurally based that just act as a framework for us to overlay the actions, reactions, and of course the consequences that come in through gameplay. So the dice then, of course, determines the outcomes as we interact with those actions and consequences. And realistically, anything is possible. What I always say to my players is that it's not about asking what you can do. It's about describing anything you want to try. You can try anything you want. So get out of the mindset of asking what you can do and the stress that comes with learning a game. Just focus about being in that element and contributing to those stories and engagements. Bad pun in the day. Well, in that case, hello. Thank you very much, Bad Pun of the Day. Welcome back. That's 2 out of 2 streams now you've graced us with. Again, thanks for coming back. Good to see you again, my friend. What time is it now in your end of the world? Bad Pun, our representative on the North Pacific. Or sorry, the North Pacific. No, Pacific's. Oh my goodness. What is it? The Pacific Northwest? Did I get that right? The Pacific Northwest? You have to forgive me. It was like 3 a.m. when you told me that on Friday. Friday morning. Oh my God, it was. I told you I'd be more active. Yes, sir. And thank you for coming through. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Much appreciated. Welcome back. Continuing with D&D Rule Solution today, the Player's Handbook describes a simple interaction actually that outlines this style of gameplay and forms the basis of how the dungeon master and the players interact to create that collaborative story. So it goes like this, verbatim. The dungeon master. After passing through the craggy peaks, the road takes a sudden turn to the east, and Castle Ravenloft towers before you. Crumbling towers of stone keep a silent watch over the approach. They look like abandoned guardhouses. Beyond these, a wide chasm gapes, disappearing into the deep fog below. A lowered drawbridge spans the chasm, leading to an arched entrance to the castle courtyard. The chains of the drawbridge creak in the wind, their rust-eaten iron straining with the weight. From atop the high, strong walls, stone gargoyles stare at you from hollow sockets and grin hideously. A rotting wooden portcullis, green with growth, hangs in the entry tunnel. Beyond this, the main doors of Castle Ravenloft stand open, a rich, warm light spilling into the courtyard. Player 1. I want to look at the gargoyles. I have a feeling they're not just statues. Player 2. The drawbridge looks precarious. I want to see how sturdy it is. Do I think we can cross it, or is it going to collapse under our weight? Dungeon Master. Okay. One at a time. Player 1, you're looking at the gargoyles? Yeah, is there any hint that might be creatures and not decorations? DM, make an intelligence check. Player 1, does my investigation skill apply? DM, Sure. Player 1 rolls a d20. Ugh, 7. DM. They look like decorations to you. And player 2 checking out the drawbridge, and it continues on through there. So this really articulates a simple interaction that happens between DMs and players. You describe a situation, a scenario. Players interact. They say how they're interacting, not ask if or for what they can do. And then the DM helps mitigate the outcomes or the consequences based on those reactions and decisions. Midwest? Okay, so I'll blame it on bad pun. I'll blame it on 3 o'clock in the morning. I thought you said Pacific Northwest. I don't know. My geography sucks. But you're in the hood with Pleasantum. So that is enough to make me think that it's probably a good place. And there are at least 2 good folk there that I know. I can now officially say that some of my favorite people come from the Midwest. So it's Midwest states then, yeah? What states qualify as Midwest in the U.S.? I should know this. I used to have this information more readily available because I was running a digital strategy for a global corporation who did a lot of operation in the States. And that's how our districts were split out. Continuing with D&D Rules Solution this week, there are 3 main pillars of Dungeons & Dragons. So what are they? Well, D&D presents an adventure where characters team up with other adventurers to work together to challenge fictional settings, including dungeons, castles, mythical environments, intrigue, and roleplay. And in there are 3 main pillars that the game is built on. Those are roleplay, combat, and exploration. So all these 3 pillars work together to create engagement and interaction, exciting conflict in those games and the resolution of those conflicts, and the imagineering of fantastic worlds and environments, settings that are bound only by your creativity. Really, the only limitation when you're playing to these 3 pillars is how far you're willing to go in your own imagination and what you can create in the moment. And that, for this week, are 5 great points in the D&D Rule Solution segment here on Speaking Common with Shambazzle Games. We do that every week. We slowly go through the player's handbook, and we really lift out those little nuggets that a lot of people don't go through when they're just kind of glossing through the rules and learning to play the game. So hope you enjoy it. We'll continue to do that every week, and I'll see you back at the bar. I want to continue with the conversation, of course, here when we're in the bar. It's about that chat, that interaction. And one of the things that we started off on that is going into DM and player tips. So from here, I want to offer you some DM tips and player tips that are drawn from both my experience as a Dungeon Master and player and some of the feedback that we've gotten from the community. So DM tip number 1 this week: when in combat, give your players a heads up when they're next in initiative so that they can start thinking ahead. As we know, one of the common gripes we see in D&D 5e is that combat tends to be clunky and extrapolate over time, so it takes too long to do. One of the things that I find helps this is when you look through the initiative and you always give the next player to come up a heads up, like, hey, you're on deck, or hey, your turn's coming up next. Start thinking about it. And then as players, the idea is that you'll start thinking about what your action's going to be or what you'd like to do before you come up in initiative. This keeps things moving fluidly around the table and can shorten that time to combat that we usually try to streamline as much as we can every single game. Midwest is hard to define, Pleasantum. Upper Midwest is Michigan, Minnesota, Illinois, Iowa, and the Dakotas. Gotcha. What a transition. You like that one? Oh, that's good, man. That's good. Thank you. 2.5 years in the making. Lower Midwest goes at least as far as Kansas. Okay, so is the Midwest, sounds like the Midwest makes up a pretty good bulk of the states then, yeah? That was beautiful, Bat Bud. You like that? Thank you very much. Folks, if you're just joining us for Speaking Common, please do throw us a follow. Don't be shy. Say hello and chat. Love to get that conversation going. Let's talk about D&D, video games, whatever you like today. It's wide open, but do hang out, be interactive. Let's wake up this Saturday morning. Yeah, and if you haven't done so already, throw me a follow. That is the currency in which I thrive. And don't be a stranger. come around often. Hope to see you on the regular. We do a number of different segments throughout the show, mostly conversation starters. And we're currently in the phase where I'm doling out Dungeon Master tips and player tips. And then you can tell me if they're good or shite. So on that note, my second DM tip this week is to throw low-level enemies at your players occasionally. It's fun to just blow things up with your new powers without needing to, have a long rest after every fight. Every now and then, I'll throw packs of lower-level combatants and enemies at my players so that they can really kind of flex and exercise that might. It's nice to just be able to carve through enemies as you gain power and grow as a character. And you don't always want to tax or need to tax your players to the nth degree through every single engagement. Sometimes it's nice to just throw something at them that'll let them feel powerful and really explore the threshold of the new powers and abilities that they're gaining. Be back in a bit. Duty calls. We'll be here, bad pun, waiting for you. I also sing. Maybe I should take requests. Anybody have requests? I feel like singing today. Pleasant Gym, a pretty good bulk of Midwest. If it's Central Time Zone, it's probably Midwest. Gotcha. That's a good filter. I learn as much in this stream from my community as I hopefully share knowledge. Is Ohio Mideast? Good question, Dr. Fairgood. PhD. A doctor of fear, if you will. Would you be a doctor who cures fear or imparts fear? If you are a Dr. Feargood, what type of fear-based doctor would you be? I'd like to know. And while you're answering that and other such critical questions that we like to explore on Shambazzle Games and the Speaking Common Saturday morning vodcast, imparts fear. I do it. I do impart the fear. I fill prescriptions in terror. Geographically challenged. I forgot Ohio existed for a moment, even though I have cousins there. And so it begins. Roll initiative. My third DM tip this week is when you're working around the table, set a mental timer or even a 5 to 10 minute timer on your phone to make sure that every PC gets some love. So if you're in the kind of situation where you're addressing characters individual, try to be mindful of how much time you're spending with each player to make sure that everybody has at least somewhat of a reasonable shake at being in the spotlight during that moment. So I like to kind of make my way around, and if I find that I'm not getting much interaction from a particular player, I'll actually create an opening for them and say, like, and what about you? What are you doing in this moment? Of course, Angel has heard me do that, and if you're watching my stream, you'll actually see me do that in game too. So I like to make sure that everybody has some runway to participate and contribute in the game. And I do that by just like counting down mentally or just like keeping an eye on how long I've spent with each individual player. And I find it works well. Your initiative is 6. Ew. Or as I like to say, you'll be first in the next round. Coffee is good for me and good for you, but not really. It's another song I just made up. It's about coffee. Of course, the tips don't begin, end, or stop for Dungeon Masters. I always offer a number of player tips that come from both my experience as a player and a Dungeon Master. So my first player tip this week is that the first step in setting up an ambush or stealth attack is declaring that you're trying to be stealthy. This is often overlooked. As a player, if you're trying to do something sneaky, the first thing you need to say to your DM is, I'm going to stealth, or I'm trying to be sneaky, or I want to do this undetected. Otherwise, we're likely going to assume that you are walking around in full visibility, so don't be surprised when an arrow comes flying at your head. But the first step in initiating stealth or ambush is declaring your intention to be stealthy. From there, the skill checks will determine the rest. How about a song about bagels? Round and delicious, doughy and fine. You have your bagels, but don't touch mine. How's that? Musical improv is another segment that I haven't yet formalized on the show, but there you go. But seriously, don't touch my bagels. The bagels are mine. That'll do. Satiated. All right, my second player tip this week is about spell slots. Even if a spell doesn't benefit from being cast in a higher spell slot, you can still always use a higher level spell slot to cast a lower level spell. And oftentimes I found my players were forgetting this. They had first level spells that they weren't casting while they still had second level slots. So even if you have a first level spell that you want to cast and you're out of first level slots, you can still cast it in a second level spell, even if there's not an entry in that spell description that says it enjoys a different benefit for being cast at a higher level slot. If you have a second level spell slot left, then you can use it to cast your first level spells. Don't let anyone tell you differently. All right, with that, let us move into the second segment on Speaking Common, which is where we explore some of the most hotly contested rules in Dungeons & Dragons 5e as determined by Rules God Daddy Jeremy Crawford. It's a segment we call Sage Advice Arcana. Nope, it's not. It's a segment that we call Sage Advice Unfurled, and it goes something like this. In this week's Sage Advice Unfurled, we're exploring a number of things. Of course, now we're actually working through the compendium so we can narrate it for you. And what happened to my background? I clicked the wrong thing. Pretend I did the... See, this is what I get for being complimented on my transitions. Pretend I just did that awesome transition, but it ended this way instead. Seamless. Seamless and perfect. All right, as I mentioned, we're making our way through the Sage Advice Compendium, and we're going to talk a little bit about armor class and how it's calculated today. So our first installment of Sage Advice Unfurled this week talks about how you actually calculate armor class and how it's affected by different armor types in D&D 5e. So the base armor class is 10 plus your dexterity modifier, and many of us know that already. But with armor, the base of that armor class becomes the armor value first. For example, chainmail just gives you a base armor class of 16. Now, keep in mind that some armor limits the amount of dexterity bonus that's applied to 2. So keep an eye on that column. If you're wearing armor that limits your dexterity bonus, it's usually to a maximum of +2. And then some armors like plate mail will remove it entirely. So you don't enjoy any dexterity bonus if you're wearing an armor type like plate mail. Additionally, some armor actually imposes disadvantage on your dexterity stealth check specifically. So keep that in mind if you're wearing noisy armor, but you also want to sneak up on fools. Some classes, of course, have unarmored defense like Monk and Barbarian, which allows them to add 2 stat bonuses together on top of that 10 AC base. And then, of course, there's another mechanic entirely for Draconic Bloodline Sorceress Origins, which gives them a base of 13 plus their dexterity. So all these feature differently. Now, some creatures have natural armor, which actually changes the base dexterity of 10 to whatever it is, and then an additional dexterity bonus. But a natural armor in place of any other secondary place, let's say leather armor, hide armor, is going to feature differently for creatures. So they have their own natural armor, which gives them a different base, and then their dexterity is calculated on top of that. And that is how base armor class is calculated in 5e D&D. And of course, if you guys have any questions about these rules and how they're handled, this is all drawn from Jeremy Crawford's column and some of the feedback that he's given through his various channels too, to clarify some of these questions that people have about some of the more nuanced rules of D&D 5e. So our second Sage Advice Unfurled entry this week speaks to the bonuses, limitations, and definitions of how armor is actually used. So as we know, you can only benefit from one armor type at a time. So, for example, you can't have natural armor plus leather armor to benefit your armor class. Similarly, Draconic Resilience does not add with unarmored defense if you were to multi-class into, let's say, Sorcerer and Monk. Similarly, a Druid slash Barb multi-class who's in Wild Shape can either benefit from the natural armor of the shape that they've shifted into, or unarmored defense from the barbarian side of their multi-class, but not both. At least in that kind of sense, you get to choose which you go with, but they are not cumulative. Shield, of course, is an exception because it's a modifier. So when you equip a shield, you get a +2 modifier to your AC, and that's additive unless it's otherwise stated, like in a monk class where it says you can't use unarmored defense while you're equipping a shield, or any armor for that matter. Seeking cover is another option that can provide an armor class bonus that's additive to your current armor class. So if you're enjoying half cover, you get a +2 modifier to your armor class. If you're under 3/4 cover, let's say you're just peeking right around the corner of a building, then you enjoy a +5 additive bonus to your armor class. Spells, of course, can also provide temporary armor class bonuses that are additive, again, in addition to these to your AC. And then, of course, magic items provide their own armor class bonuses if and where they do, too. So, for example, a cleric with +1 chainmail, which gives an armor class of 17, holding a shield, which increases that armor class by 2 to 19, with Shield of Faith up, which further increases your armor class by +2 to a total of 21, and is finally half covered by a rock, which gives you an additive cover bonus of +2, has a final armor class of 23, and that's how armor class is calculated with multiple bonuses. Whew! I guess armor class gets dicey. And that's about as mathy as 5e gets, Frank. That's about as mathy as 5e gets, thankfully, in my opinion. I don't know, what are you guys thinking so far? Well, not what you were wanting, though it rolled it by clicking a link. Speaking of clicking links, if you're joining us today and you would like to help us get the word out, I would greatly appreciate it if you could click on this simple link for a one-click prefab tweet that you can send out and help us get the word out to more folk, get them joining us on the weekly D&D news here on Speakling Common. And my perfect grammar and delivery of the basic English language. There you go. Please do so. Please help us get the word out and bring more fine friends into our wonderful abode. Continuing with sage advice on Furl today, I want to talk specifically about some clarifications around elf meditation, or the trance trait or feature. This is one that comes up often, and it has various different applications for everyone. But the trance trait for elven folk doesn't necessarily mean you can pop off for 4 hours and get all your stuff back. It simply means that the benefit of 8 hours of rest and everything that comes therein, an elven kind player can achieve in 4 hours while in that trance. It doesn't mean that elves are also wide awake and completely in tune with their surroundings during these 4 hours. They're still somewhat vulnerable, as they are semi-conscious at best. Additionally, this trance is still subject to the regular rules around long rest rules, which include, if interrupted, they must begin again, whether it's 4 hours or 8 hours or otherwise. They can only benefit from a long rest like anyone else once during each 24-hour period. And they must have at least 1 hit point at the beginning of that rest in order to gain the benefits of a long rest. So it's something to keep in mind as you're going through or playing with characters and racial benefits that speak to the trance trait, or the ability to go into a meditative state rather than full out sleeping. And I see that one handled differently and often misused, especially when people think that, or players think that they can, like, I'm just in a trance, so I can keep watch and also be in a trance at the same time. It's not quite that way. While think of it as like a light sleep, if anything, is probably a good way to look at it. Or when you're in a deep meditative sleep, sure, you might be able to hear things a little bit better. You might be more in tune to what's happening around you, but you're not, consciously watching a camp like you were if you were on watch, let's say, in a rotation. And that's how the rules around elven meditation are handled. Another trait that's often contested as it relates to specifically wood elves and lightfoot halflings is their ability to hide in plain sight. So the hiding racial traits for wood elves, Mask of the Wild, and lightfoot halflings, called naturally stealthy, stipulates that they can try to conceal themselves in certain circumstances, even when observers are nearby. Now, of course, the conditions for these are that halflings have to be able to hide behind someone or something that's at least one size larger. And for wood elves using the Mask of the Wild trait, they have to be in conditions of heavy rain, mist, fog, or other natural obscurity in order to be able to use this trait. So it's not a matter of just like vanishing in front of someone's eyes. There are still conditions that have to be satisfied to be able to use that trait. Then, of course, the regular roles around stealth versus perception still apply when it is determined that they can even hide in the first place. So when these traits are used, they still have to be reinforced with a successful dexterity stealth check against an observer's potential perception check. And now I will break for water. I'm doing a lot of talking. What are you guys thinking? What are you guys in the middle of right now? What are you going to do after this? I got some friends coming over. I have two, like I said, one couple friend of ours who are part of our non-distancing bubble, which is part of our phase 2 change in Ontario. So we haven't seen them in 3 months. We have seen no one. They have seen no one. And we've collectively agreed that these are the only two that we'll engage with at this time. But we're really excited to see them. They're our closest friends. My wife was her maid of honor, and she was my wife's maid of honor. The husband, myself and her husband are best friends, and we're really excited to see each other. So looking forward to that after the stream today. Actually, it's going to be a good Saturday. Damn it! It's beautiful outside today too. Concluding Sage Advice Unfurled this week, continuing with the theme of racial traits as they relate to class traits, specifically Dragonborn sorcerers and the Draconic Bloodline trait. So you are able to create a Dragonborn character who also draws arcane influence as a sorcerer under the Draconic Bloodline sorcerer's origin. How that works is, well, first of all, there's no rule that states that a Dragonborn sorcerer has to choose the same Draconic bloodline as their sorcerer's origins. So if you're a blue dragon kin, you can have a red dragon Draconic sorcerer's Draconic bloodline trait as a sorcerer. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say there. A blue Dragonborn could indeed have a red Draconic ancestor in the Draconic bloodline sorcerer's origin. Better said. The racial feature actually comes from your heritage. So as a blue dragon, let's say in this example, and the Draconic sorcerer's origin bestowed upon you by a Draconic influence, item, focus, or otherwise. They're not assumed to be linked in any way unless the player chooses to do so. So if you are choosing a Dragonborn sorcerer and the Draconic ancestry sorcerer's origin, they can totally be red, blue, white, green, whatever combination you want. They don't invariably have to reflect one another unless you want to do that as a player. So it's a good clarification between how to line up those particular race and class combinations as they benefit one another. Those are separate things, Pleasant Doom. Absolutely. That's a better way of saying it. What I said in 2 paragraphs, Angela has summed up in 4 words. Thank you for that. I may tend to be a little bit verbose. And that's the end of Sage Advice Unfurled segment. 5 great items from the Sage Advice Compendium. We're going to continue this every week here on Saturday. Of course, at in the Speaking Common D&D live news podcast every Saturday, just like we did today. So you can look forward to more of that. In the meantime, shall we head back to the bar? Whoop. I think my transitions are getting goofier as we go along. That's all the things, gang. What do you think? Any feedback? Did you like that? Not like that? Like it? Like some parts? Like not like others? As we continue to grow this stream, I'm going to start to build this more into like a flowing kind of talk show. And I always want to make sure, that, of course, that I take the time to interact with you, the community, because that's why I'm here and that's what we do. That's what I look forward to every single week. No, I mean, all right, before I wrap up the stream today, like I said, we are doing a little bit of a shorter stream. Typically, I would go for at least another hour, and we would go a little bit further into actually now building some gameplay. And I'm really looking forward to bringing that back in starting next week. So I hope you'll join me for it. So I don't know if you saw before or saw last time we streamed live map making, but I have a beautiful digital map making setup now with which is completely 3D. We can do great things like 3D engaging photorealistic maps for Roll20 or animated maps if you're using like a TV tabletop setting, which I do in my home game. So I'm looking forward to bringing back in the creation of that on stream. And we usually take suggestions from chat about how to build that. So I might actually pull that up. What do you guys want to see a sample of what that looks like before I wrap up for the day? You guys want to see the map making suite? What you think? Let's do it, shall we? Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Do it. Any song requests before I flip over? Now, this is also going to be a test for the tech because I tweaked some of my OBS settings and how my graphics processor works with me or not. So it might get really choppy, and if so, then we'll clue up. But cross your fingers, and let's see as we start up the platform here in the background. I'll keep an eye on chat to make sure we don't get super choppy. And hopefully I can show you the map making suite. So far, so good. It's not getting bunk. If it starts to get choppy at all, then I'll just stop it immediately because I don't want the stream to get bogged down. But I think we're doing okay so far. So I'll fire up the platform here. And I'm not swaying because I'm drunk in the bar. I'm swaying because I want to keep moving on my screen so I can see if things are working or not. It's okay. Frame rate's okay so far. Might be getting a little tiny bit chunky. Okay, so let me see. All right, let's flip the scene over and see if it plays well with us. This is what map making looks like and will look like as we move forward for the second half of the stream right here on Speaking Common every Saturday. Check it out. All right. Here we go. So I use a tool called Flowscape. It's a brilliant platform. And actually, when we bring this in, I'm going to be giving away keys to the tool. I've reached out to the makers of Flowscape. They are based in Australia, and they're a wonderful crew. And they've actually given me some keys to give away on stream. So I'm really looking forward to that. But this will be a quick little demo about how the map making stream works, or the map making platform works. Oh, I'm so glad that it's actually working without getting clunky and stuff. Let me move my big head over. There you go. Maybe let me make my big head a little bit smaller instead. What do you guys think? All right. So this is a black screen. There we go. Like, come on, Flowscape. All right, so we're starting with a new palette here, and every time we jump into Flowscape, it'll just populate a palette that we can work with. We can either take it, bring it down to formula, or continue with it. I have a tendency to clear it. So I'll clear it all. And then we can zoom around this 3D map. And I can do things like, let me see. Oh, it's nice and fluid. I'm so happy. Last time I tried this, it got like super janky and bunk. So let's play with some of the settings here. I can sculpt. I can push this up. I can bring it down. Let's see. Even if I was going to do a small channel through here, and I wanted to create, like, let's say a cavern. So I'm going to carve this out a little bit, and I'm going to make like a top-down dungeon map. And this is a cave that I'm going to make, right? So I can do this, and the cave kind of carves off into different areas. I've never done this before, so I'm just like literally doing this on the fly. It's very user-friendly. It's quite easy to do, right? And then I want another room over here in my cavern, right? So we can push this topography way down, and we're creating walls as we're doing this, right? And various little like caverns and the little thing here. But hey, Sham, that's not a top-down map. You're right, not yet, because Flowscape has a function where we can do things like this in map view, and we can make it ortho, and now it's a top-down map. We can rotate that, so we got our bottom. So now we can create this top-down. We can even add a grid and size the grid. That gives us the scale that we want. So I love this platform. This is what I do for map making. You can look forward to this. Typically on a normal stream, we would then be bringing this into the second half of Speaking Common, where we're going to get into all kinds of game prep. We're going to do tons of map making like this for Roll20 that we can bring into our games. We're going to do campaign prep, note writing, NPC development, all the great things that I really enjoy about creating things in Dungeons and Dragons. And I look forward to sharing that with you on Speaking Common moving forward. So the new format for Speaking Common from this point forward will be the first half is D&D news, discussion, content for the week, D&D rules solution, Sage Advice Unfurled, and all that great back and forth we have about the game we love. And the second half will actually be preparing to play D&D and the various many hours that I put into creating those exceptional experiences for my players, ideally in my unbiased opinion. So I hope you like that. I hope it's something you can be excited for. But let's go back to the bar, and we'll wrap up for this week and look out for next week's session. Like this. Why aren't you doing the things? Speaking of my seamless transitions, sorry, like this. Mistakes are little gifts, I always say. Every mistake is a gift. Yeah, so hopefully that's something that you can look forward to. I love map making because I always take suggestions for chat. We build the map together. I'm really excited to get that back in order and get back to it on my stream. Plus, I will have keys to give away for the platform that you just saw, which is available on Steam, Flowscape. So, and then we're going to talk about animated maps and a great little platform called Arkenforge. I also have keys for that too. So I'm going to be giving things away to other people who like to create things. So follow me, come back. Don't be shy. But yeah, with that, I think that's a good way to tie it off for the day. Thank you all so much for joining me. As always, I greatly appreciate your time, for coming on by, for hanging out. And we do have, there it is, my shameless request for follows has proven to pay out once again. The Ultra Boss, not just any boss. He comes from far deep in the dungeon. Ultra Boss has joined us. Hello, welcome. Welcome. Thank you very much for the follow. Welcome to the Checkmates. You're part of an amazing crew of tabletop gaming aficionados, enthusiasts, and lovers, and gaming enthusiasts as well with the Checkmates. You're in good company here. We have an incredible community. +1 to incredible with your involvement today. So thanks for joining us, Ultra Boss. Greatly appreciate the support. If you haven't done so yet, just like Ultra Boss has so eloquently shown, please throw me a follow. You're a beginner for D&D, then you've definitely found the right place. Of course, we are wrapping up the stream. Typically, I go until 2, so we would do another hour. So don't be a stranger. Do come back every Saturday morning. We do all kinds of D&D discussion. Definitely encourage you to check out the VOD as well. And if you are interested in more D&D stuffs, I produce content all day, every day on my Twitter account at Shambazzle Games. Do throw me a follow there if you want to give us a clickety-click. I'd love to see you on the Twitterverse. I publish tons and tons of stuff that'll help you very quickly get into the stream of Dungeons and Dragons and all the wonderful things it has to offer. And I can't think of a better way to wrap up the stream. Another quick shout out for those of us who followed online and offline today. Brent147, thank you for the follow. T Granger coming from the Mixer crew, thanks for joining us today. And the Ultra Boss for that great follow to wrap up the stream. Of course, Pleasant Doom and Dr. Feargood, Bad Pun, and all the other great community members who come back regularly. I hope to see you again for another stream. Next on the schedule, we have 2Play on Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where Steph and I will be continuing our playthrough of The Last of Us 2. It's exciting. Steph freaks out. It's hilarious. We have a lot of fun with it, and it won't be midnight, so hopefully we'll have more people who are ready to join us for another fantastic stream. So until then, checkmates, happy gaming. Be good to one another, and we'll see you next time, hopefully Monday, right here for another great stream on Shambazzled Games. Have a great weekend, everybody.